Hi, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to Get Satisfaction's Product Roadmap webinar. We'll be taking questions in the questions box throughout the webinar, but we're going to address them after the presentation. And if your questions don't get answered today, we'll be emailing you directly. You can join in on the conversation on Twitter with hashtag GSProduct. And if there are any problems with the visuals or audio, please feel free to use the chat box and let us know. I'm going to pass it on to Doug Nugent, our VP of Customer Success. Thanks, guys.
Hi, everyone. My name is Doug Nugent. I run Customer Success here at Get Satisfaction, and I'd like to welcome everyone to our quarterly Roadmap webcast. We've got a fantastic turnout, and I'd like to thank everybody for joining. I'd also like to thank many of you for submitting your ideas to our own community. Although we can't execute on every request, and sometimes it takes a little longer to get some features out the door than we'd like, we really do appreciate and value your input, so please keep them coming. Going forward, we anticipate running these every quarter, so you have some insight into upcoming features and functionality you can take advantage of. So without further ado, I'd like to hand it over to our CTO, Dave Rowley.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today. I'm going to talk a little bit about where we're going with our product, both some of our long-term objectives and some of the short-term stuff that you'll see relatively soon. And I look forward to answering your questions after I get through the presentation, and so please keep those coming. So before you set out on a path and decide where you want to go from a product and company standpoint, it's important to have an idea about where that end state or where your general direction is. So let's start with a little context, how we see ourselves now and how we see ourselves going forward. So first and foremost, we see ourselves as a way to connect consumers and businesses of all types and sizes. And we are a central hub. We play an important piece in social media connections, and the role that we play spans the entire cycle of customer engagement around purchasing, around support, and around a variety of other use cases. So with our platform, we're able to build solutions that create valuable customer engagement, that would provide value around marketing and customer acquisition, and from which we can derive tremendous meaning and insight based on the conversations that occur within our platform. And last but not least, we see ourselves as a mobile company. And in fact, we see all SaaS offerings that involve humans as effectively mobile undertakings. So we want to be as relevant in the mobile world as we are on the desktop. So there are three big initiatives that are driving our product development right now. We want to build upon the technology base that we already have, both to accommodate the growth that we're seeing within our network of communities, but also to increase the pace of innovation. We want to create a higher level of engagement within communities because we feel that engagement directly contributes to the content that's represented in those communities, and it is from that content that we're able to derive tremendous value for our customers. So with these in mind, we're building tools that will capture, engage, segment, and allow you to communicate with your customers. So beyond those initiatives, we are also influenced by our constituents, the people who we serve. So certainly we serve the needs of consumers, the folks who are using our platform to interact with each other and interact with the brands who represent those communities, to get answers to questions, to provide ideas about new product development, and to help make decisions about buying stuff online. We're also very concerned about business users, folks like yourselves. We're using our platform to interact with each other as a team and interact with the consumers who you serve. And we want to accommodate your need to extract value from the community. So that weighs on our thinking heavily. And then beyond just the sort of the people that we serve, we're also very mindful of partners and application developers and customers who are also building technology and serving them as a platform. And a platform that allows access to the entities that represent the community engagement, the topics, the users, the communities, and that sort of thing. But also to provide an ability to augment and extract value from the community experience. So with the intersection of those two areas of concern are driving what we're building now and what we'll be building next. So I want to talk about three kind of high-level endeavors that we're currently engaged in. We're in the process of building a new next-generation community app focused on the consumer. And we're doing so using a mobile-first design objective. And what I mean by that is we're thinking first and foremost about how consumers will interact with this community application from smartphones and from tablets. And then we're expanding based on that understanding to how they will interact with the community on desktops and laptops. We're also building a brand new application expressly for the needs of the business user. So community managers, administrators, marketing folks. And we're building this separate from the community app because we want to have the appropriate focus and make sure that we accommodate the needs, the goals, and the tasks that are performed by business users, which are quite a bit different than the things that a consumer does when they interact with the community. And we're also making a significant investment in our platform, not only to build out and scale to accommodate growth, but also to establish a service-oriented architecture that allows us to build our new next-generation apps quickly, but also serves the needs of our partners and our customers who want to leverage the underlying capabilities of the community. So we're putting a lot of emphasis on the platform as a product. So let me tell you a little bit more about that within the context of our sort of overall system architecture. So we'll start with this kind of high-level logical diagram of the different entities in our system and how they relate to each other. So here you can see the platform and then various front-end applications who interact with the platform through a series of APIs that we extend. The platform also acts as a layer that hides the details of how the data that we collect is stored, but also provides a mechanism for external systems to connect into that platform. So let's talk about each one of these entities. So I mentioned that we're building a next-generation community app. And again, a key driver from a design perspective is that we're doing this with the needs of the mobile user in mind first. And over time, it will grow to become the next generation community app for users on all types of devices. Another underlying design objective is that we want to make this new community app intrinsically configurable and customizable because we understand the needs of our customers to make the community experience consistent with the experience of the rest of their web presence. So to do this, we're leveraging the notion of a template. So templates lend themselves to the placement of elements on them. They lend themselves to customization, to the application of style, and it gives us the basis for a very flexible system. Over time, as I was saying, this will become the primary mechanism for all users to interface with communities, and because we're building it using a responsive mobile-first approach, there will not be a separate mechanism that you use from a mobile device, separate from the mechanism that you use from a desktop. It will be the same web application that will adapt itself to the screen size of the device that you're on. And so the first incarnation of this new community app, you'll start to see this year, between now and the end of the year. And we're going to be rolling that out over time. And our go-to-market is going to be addressing the mobile use case first. So that means that this will replace our existing mobile web application. And some of you may be involved in the beta program around this. I did a couple of screenshots just to give you a glimpse of where we're going with this. These aren't Photoshop, they're just actual screenshots. But the idea here is it will be, you'll see that the stylistic treatment here is not overwhelming, so not a lot of purple and orange, because we want to accommodate our customers being able to brand this application to be consistent with their own web presence. So that was just a little flavor, sneak peek. So the other thing that we're building now is this new business console. So the business console is that application that is being purpose-built for the needs of the business user. And we're not attempting to address the needs of consumers and business users through one single application. So this will be very entirely business user focused. Now, we're also doing this in a sort of evolutionary fashion, meaning we'll be incrementally adding functionality to this new business console application. And the first set of functionality that we're going to market with is around community setup, what we call getting started. So later this year, you'll begin to see a new way in which new communities get created and get seeded with the information, the topics and the links and the users that we know, based on our experience, lead to successful communities. But then over time, we will begin to layer in additional functionality. So for example, moderation and curation will be the kind of the next big chunk of functionality that we'll be adding to the business console. Here's another sneak peek. The idea here is that we want to lead our business users down the path of sort of a stepwise approach to getting their community set up. And we have a lot of information because we've been doing this for a while. We know the types of things that you need to do that are highly correlated with getting a successful community off the ground. So, so we spell it out, and we have a way for you to sort of check off step by step the different things that you do here. And because we realize that this might be done over a period of time, we keep track of this. So as you come back to the business console, it remembers where you were, and it tells you what you have yet to do. Here's another screen that shows you sort of the initial setup of the community itself. But you will walk through these different things. You will seed it with topics. You'll be able to invite sort of a small group of people who can begin the conversations and get your community off the ground. And Jargon, our sort of anti-mascot, will be giving you advice and stepping you through that process. We continue to invest in our Engage widgets. We've already made some substantial improvements into the way in which they're configured. And we've added functionality to the Engage widgets around product filtering and applied those to all the various Get Satisfaction plans that involve widgets. And we'll continue to incorporate feedback from you and from our community to enhance the capabilities of the widgets. I know that both localization and stylizing are important things that we're going to be pursuing in the coming months. Haven't really talked about our Facebook app yet, but we've made some pretty substantial investments there as well. So we've rewritten it to use the APIs that our platform exposes. This technology base is based all on GetSatisfaction IP, so it's something that is entirely ours. We're adding localization, we're adding private messaging, and the rollout of this new Facebook app is occurring now. So some of you may have already participated in that, and if you haven't yet, you will be soon. So a little bit about the platform and the platform as a product. So right now, a lot of the things that we're doing with our platform are to separate out the different functions that it performs so that it can be scaled appropriately based on the load that's placed on the system from the various applications that use it. We're extending the APIs that we already have to meet the needs of the new applications that we're building. But because we're using the same APIs that our customers and our partners will use, everybody benefits from that. So we're very much a fan of eating our own dog food, and we're doing this by ensuring that new applications are only using the APIs that are generally available to our customers and partners. These APIs will grow, they will be more manageable from our perspective, and we'll have more facilities for developers to make use of them and to have documentation and examples and that sort of thing. The other function that the platform provides is a way for partners and customers to connect into the underlying functionality of GetSatisfaction. So we want to provide a mechanism that exposes a plug-in interface for third-party developers, not only to consume content that exists within the community, but to also augment the community experience with additional functionality. So you may see gadgets that can be placed on a template in the new consumer app that are implemented as external plugins from our partners. And so we're developing this connector framework to facilitate that. So what's next? So I talked about a lot of the things that are in process now, and we have a couple of relatively short-term deliverables in both the first generation of that business console and the mobile version of our new community app. So we're going to continue to build on those themes. So what we'll be doing next with the community app is we'll be extending it to become the potential replacement for the desktop experience, and certainly a customized version or a version that adapts to tablet form factors as well. And we'll be continuing to expand on the capabilities that are afforded by this template-driven approach that we're using. From a functionality standpoint, per the three directional initiatives that I talked about at the beginning, we're going to be focusing on driving user engagement. So we'll be adding capabilities to the new community app that result in a heightened level of engagement, because that creates more meaningful conversations from which we can derive value. On the business console side, I mentioned briefly that we would be adding moderation and curation functionality next. And we're doing that because we can appreciate, based on a lot of the feedback that we get and from using the system ourselves, quite frankly, that there are things that we can do to better support workflow capabilities, the types of activities and tasks that community managers do day in and day out to operate on, reply to, and be aware of conversations that are going on in the community. So that's an important effort that we'll be taking on over the next several months, and you'll begin to see the fruits of that labor early next year. The other thing that we'll be focusing on in the business console is This will be the place where you will customize the templates that are used in the new community app. So that would be follow-on work that we'll be addressing. And we'll be incorporating more analytics and reports and charts and graphs and stuff like that into the business console as well. On the platform side, beyond just extending the APIs for our own needs, we'll be building out a developer portal that will make it easier for our partners and developers at large to make use of the APIs that we're building. We want to create a marketplace for third-party plugin developers so that we can facilitate the development of functionality that can augment and contribute to the community experience. The platform, as a given the fact that it embodies the underlying model that represents the community and all of the entities that make it up, we'll be extending that. And we'll be doing it in a way to both provide new functionality, but also to provide better, more meaningful insights into what's going on, the types of conversations that we're having. And there's some very exciting data products that we'll be coming out with in the first half of next year. And that's all going to be implemented within this platform and then exposed through APIs and our sort of connector interface. So directionally, that's where we're going next with these three main areas of focus for us. Let me talk about some specific deliverables and some dates associated with them. You might be interested in this. So as I was saying, that first incarnation of our new community app, again, going to market as our replacement for our existing mobile web app, that's going to be delivered this quarter. And the first instantiation of our business console focused on community setup, that whole getting started process, will also be delivered this quarter. So those are two big, important first steps, but they're really just first steps. But you'll start to see the evidence of that work very soon. The platform, the APIs that we're adding to the platform to support those applications will also be available as a matter of course as we're doing this work this quarter. And we'll also be doing underlying changes, making underlying changes to our data model to support some interesting things that we're doing, again, on the moderation and curation side, but also as a way to expand upon the notion of categories, topic categories. So in the future, we'll have a much broader notion of categories and a much broader notion of roles. And the intersection of those two things can result in some pretty compelling functionality by using roles as a mechanism to restrict access or give access to portions of your community for VIP access or beta users or whatever. So we're going to give you much more control over how you segment the conversations that are happening in your community and how you segment your user population and apply those two things together. So that work will be starting in the first quarter, even though a lot of the design work and some of the early implementation is already underway. Regarding functionality that drives engagement, well, our Community Health Analytics 2.0 has already been demoed. You may have read some. We had a press release about it. Perhaps you saw it demoed at Dreamforce. We feel that this drives engagement because it provides better visibility to the business user as to what's going on in the community, which allows them to become involved in a more meaningful way. And that involvement, of course, then spurs more activity by your consumers. So, our CHA 2.0 functionality is being rolled out in the month of November, just a few days away over the course of that month. We've also introduced this notion of federated search, which is just a fancy way of saying we allow you to search knowledge bases and sort of information repositories outside of your community. That's another thing that we were demoing around Dreamforce, and it was announced at the end of Q3. It's actually already released into production, and we're provisioning that now for some of our enterprise customers. The work on moderation and curation of the business console, the dev work is starting this quarter. Design work is actually happening right now, and we hope to get that delivered in early of next year. And then beyond the initial functionality that we'll be releasing in this new community application, we'll be enhancing it with more functionality that encourages activity. So this can be kind of rolled up under the broad umbrella of gamification, but it's really giving users more visibility on the activity, their own activity level of others, building on reputation, and that sort of thing. So that's something that we'll be beginning to deliver in Q1. And then regarding tools and data products for marketers, we're already working closely with a number of partners on email system integration, so providing a convenient way for you to reach out to your most important users who participate in your communities. You'll see that, you'll hear more about that, perhaps even by the end of this quarter, certainly in Q1 of next year. But there's interesting stuff that we're doing regarding being able to identify who your most important advocates are based on the kinds of conversations that they have, their level of engagement, and how other people view them. So that's something that we're looking at doing in the first half of next year, making that functionality available to you. And then there's a broad set of capabilities that are derived from analyzing the data within the communities that we'll be releasing over the course of next year. So things like intent prediction. Anytime when a conversation or a set of conversations leads to a known outcome, you can use that as a pattern that you can compare other conversations that are happening now. And so you can see the propensity of a particular conversation to lead to a particular outcome when you have a known idea about other conversations that were similar and the outcomes that occurred there. So we're going to be building on that, and things like intent prediction will be coming out sort of the middle of next year. So there you have it. I know that there was a lot of wild typing, lots of incoming questions and things from Twitter and from the webcast directly. So I'll take the first one. Will the new customer app accept our existing customizations, or will we have to completely rebuild it? So that's a good question, and that's why we're not sort of just pulling the plug and making a swift, forcing everybody to change. We realize that we're going to have to roll this out over time. In some cases, some customizations are very extensive, and those will be difficult to just sort of automatically transition over to a new application that has sort of a fundamentally different approach to the way customizations are done. So it is certainly an objective of ours to minimize the effort required to do that. But because our customers have done some pretty unique things in the customization of the communities, there'll be a small portion where we're going to have to sort of deal with that on a case-by-case basis. But some of the lighter customizations could be done more automatically. And then, go ahead. Okay. Another question about the mobile app. When will the update be released to make it easier for the moderators to respond? So we're taking a very different approach to the way that we're building our new community app, again, which will be the released first to address the needs of mobile users. And rather than trying to mix the needs of both business users, moderators, and consumers, we're building separate apps. So rather than attempt to add a moderation community to the mobile app, we are building the business console, which will be focused on things like moderation, to also be mobile capable. So we're taking a mobile first approach to the design of that as well. But it will be a separate web app. And again, the moderation functionality in the Business Console will be something that we're introducing the first quarter of next year. We're working on defining it right now. So when that is released, you'll have a mobile app that's that you can use for moderation that will be hopefully not buggy and easy to use by design on mobile devices. Okay, I'm going to take a few questions that came in, let's see, through Twitter and through some other means. There's a question here about workflow functionality and how that will be addressed in the Business Console. So one of the ideas that we're focusing on right now to support workflow functionality is this notion of very quickly being able to narrow down the set of topics based on a variety of criteria. So imagine that you are able to define a preset filter, a named filter that might sort things by or filter things by, for example, topics created within the past 24 hours of a particular type that haven't not yet been replied to or that are in a particular state. So if you can create a filter like that, very specific, and name it and have that be at your disposal, you're able to very quickly then walk through and attend to those topics or perform a bulk operation on them all. So we're going to really leverage this notion of custom filters that can be named, and you can have preset filters to effectively build work queues that are specific to your needs, because different business users will have different needs, and the way in which you've divided various tasks and responsibilities across different community managers can be accommodated that way. So when you see this new moderation and curation functionality, you'll see that it really revolves around this notion of named filters and pretty complex filters. Let's see, what else? Is there a client-side library for agent-based support on your mobile? So let me address that in a couple of ways. So first off, the new community application that I've been describing is a web application. So it's not a it is not a platform-specific app. It's a web app that's going to run on all of the sort of interesting devices that we care about and that you care about. But we do anticipate and actually see today mobile application developers. So folks who are building platform-specific apps that want to incorporate community functionality directly in those apps. So this is being addressed in a couple of different ways. One is, while the set of APIs that we're exposing would allow you as an application developer to incorporate community functionality into your apps, and we actually see examples of our customers who are doing exactly this, doing some very creative things. But we want to make it easier for app developers to do this. So next year we plan on introducing SDKs that are platform specific that make it even easier for you to drop in various community widgets, if you will, directly into your mobile app. I guess I'll add a little bit to that because you mentioned agent-based support on your mobile. So beyond having a mobile version of this Business Console, which is sort of going to be the bread and butter for agents or community managers, we are considering building platform-specific apps for business users because we feel that that there could be advantages offered by having a platform-specific app to suit the needs of frequently performed tasks that business users do. So that's something that we're contemplating for next year. But right now we're putting all of our energy into making sure that these these next generations of the web apps that we're building perform well on mobile devices. There was a question about this new mobile app, or our next generation community app, and single sign-in login or FastPass login. So yes, when we go to market with that app, we will be supporting FastPass. It will be in the GA release of that community app that will be rolling out this year. Another question that we get sometimes about this new app is, will it support private communities? Some of you folks have private communities and you want to be able to provide mobile access to them. And yes, when we go to market with this new next generation of community app, it will support private communities as well. All right, let's see. Here's a question about federated search and what knowledge bases do you support when federating. So we support Salesforce knowledge base. We support Google, Google search, Google custom search. We'll be supporting Bing and Yahoo and other search services like that. But one thing that's kind of interesting is that we're supporting the OpenSearch API. So if a CRM or a knowledge base implements to this API, the standard API, we'll be able to perform federated searches based on that. So we think that because it's pretty broadly adopted, the standard is pretty broadly adopted, we get a lot of leverage from that. So that's the way that we're approaching sort of generic knowledge base searching capabilities. Let's see. Do subcategories, the upcoming feature, apply to groups of messages or only to segmenting user population? I'll do my best at interpreting this this question, but so yeah, I had described the fact that we are going to be expanding on the notion of categories, and you're right. We'll likely have hierarchical categories, and we're expanding on the notion of roles, and the idea is to allow roles to define permissions for different types of operations on categories. And if you have your community divided up into categories, and these categories can be rich and hierarchical, then there's quite a bit of functionality that you have there in being able to restrict access to subsets of that community. So you ask whether this can be applied to groups of messages or only to segmenting user population. So it's the intersection of both those things. I see categories as a way to organize messages or topics, and the roles to be a way of segmenting the user population. And then it's the intersection of those two things that gives you some of this interesting functionality that I've been talking about. All right. Well, looking at the big clock here, it looks like we're running short on time. There's lots of questions that have come in. I know I've only been able to touch on a few of them. We will review everything that's been submitted, both through Twitter, through the webinar, through our own community. I know that you guys are always posting ideas and questions in our community, and we look at each and every one of them. And we'll be getting back to you through email, or we'll be getting back to you as replies on the topics that are posted in the community as well. So thank you very, very much for listening, and I look forward to answering your further questions. And don't forget, our community link is at getsatisfaction.com/getsatisfaction. And look forward to more webinars like this in the coming months. Thank you very much.